For being with us. Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, I wasn't expecting the recording. Thank you for being with us to celebrate Black History Month here in King George. In honor of the Black History Month theme, health and wellness, the King George NAACP seeks to encourage everyone to be actively involved in their healthcare needs. When it comes to our health, it goes without saying that prevention is the best option. Though we cannot control our genetics, being mindful of what we eat, how we prepare our foods, how active we are, and the quality of sleep we are getting are fundamental to helping us have quality health. Additionally, we encourage you to seek out a trusted family member or friend who can provide extra support in your healthcare needs. We are providing a list of websites to be used for information as needed. The links that I hope you will see on this screen will be available at the King George NAACP website at kgnaacp.com. As a brief overview of these websites and these links, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Minority Health, offers extensive information on diversity and representation, behavioral health, cancer, heart disease, sickle cell disease, and much more. The link to the Centers for Disease Control offers information on health equity and African American history. The CDC is also an excellent resource to get updates about COVID-19. Next, the National Institute of Mental Health is a great educational resource to gain insight and understanding into mental health diseases and the best treatment choices. Next, you'll see that the Rappahannock Area Health District website, which also just provides general health information. Next is a link for those who are interested in learning more about organ donation. On the next slide, I am pleased to announce to you that the American Nursing Association, under the leadership of Dr. Ernest Grant, has appointed a national commission to address racism in nursing. Not listed in the links here, I do want to go ahead and mention also that the Virginia Nurses Association has an active diversity, equity, and inclusivity group. Next, you will see the Agency on Healthcare Research and Quality. This offers data about healthcare disparities. We actually were not able to confirm if this is a central location to report disparities and did not get our slides updated in time. However, it is a resource to access data about disparities. Next, you'll see the Mayo Clinic is another reliable resource to read about most any disease you are interested in learning more about. And last, please allow me to direct you to our local resource for mental health issues. You can visit the website, Youth Life Services, and you will be hearing from the owner of this resource next, Ms. Antasia Nance. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ms. Stonehill. I would like to have a co-host so I can share my screen as well, please.
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay. Well, while that's in progress, hello, my name is Antasia Nance. I'm a licensed clinical social worker here in Virginia. I do have my own practice called Youth Life Services, where we focus on working with youth and their families to address mental health concerns. That could be adjustment, anxiety, depression, behavior issues, school issues, anything that you're going through. We are there to help support the youth and their families. I've also opened up a portion for adult services where we support young adults who are transitioning in college, parents, and any adults that come through our office seeking services and care. So today I'd like to talk to you all about mental wellness. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see, here we go. Let me go ahead and put on presentation mode. All righty. So I want to talk to you all about the importance of mental wellness. I have about like 5 or so minutes, so I'm going to quickly go through the slide here. So the biggest thing is this truth about mental health. We all have it. Just like physical health, we all have mental health. And how we care for our mental health determines how well we manage those stressors in our lives, and also preventing mental illness. So some of the common stressors that we all go through is, a loss of a loved one, marriage and transitions and changes with moves and building a family. And if you have to relocate to another country, another state, the young adults right now finishing up high school, going off to college. There's a lot of changes and stressors that we all go through. And the biggest one that we all are experiencing is COVID. And so those outbreaks of diseases, right, and illnesses and sickness that can run rampant across our nation are all common stressors. And so you all might be saying, okay, these are all normal things that happen, but these normal things can take a toll on our mental health. So there are good levels of stress, and there's also toxic levels of stress. So the good levels of stress helps us to be productive, helps us to focus. It's kind of that push to book that ticket, finish that assignment, make that phone call. It can actually give us that push pretty much. If we have too much of that stress hormone in our body, is called cortisol, it can cause an overload in our system and cause us to have physical and mental health problems. So I did add a picture on my slide just to highlight some of those concerns. So some of that is shutting down your digestive system, increased blood pressure, thyroid functioning problems, delayed ovulation, raised blood sugar, impaired immune system. And as far as mental health, ongoing depression and anxiety that can lead to severe depression and anxiety, maybe a psychotic episode. Stress kind of shows itself in us very differently. And so if we have too much of that hormone, we can then end up having those physical and mental health problems. So you guys are all probably saying, I have a lot on my plate, Antasia. How do I manage the stress? I don't have the time. I'm raising kids. I'm running a business. I'm going to my job, washing dishes, laundry, all these things that we have on our plate, right? How do you find the time? The main important thing is we have to find the time. We have the gift of self-care to take care of our mental health. And so pretty much self-care is taking the time to care for our physical needs, our emotional needs, social needs, spiritual needs, and professional needs. So I'm going to go through the next couple slides to kind of highlight what I mean by that. So our physical self-care, eating healthy, like Ms. Stonehill had mentioned, getting active and working out, making sure that you sleep, making sure that you're drinking water. It's amazing how much just drinking water can aid to our overall physical and mental health. Going to your doctor for the preventative care checkups, right? Going to the dentist, taking care of the body and this vessel that you have. Emotional self-care. There's a lot, like I mentioned, of changes and stressors that's going on. Talk to somebody. If it's weighing on you pretty heavy, talk to a friend, talk to your pastor, talk to a family member, or even reach out to a professional to talk to work through these struggles. Take some time to journal. If you're not a talker, take some time with self-reflection and journaling to kind of figure out, okay, how is this stuff really affecting me right now? Like I'm moving across the country, I'm excited, but I'm also very nervous. I think about all these things. Take some time to step back and reflect. Social self-care. Go on a vacation with your friends, with your family. Spend time with people that you love. Spend time with your grandchildren, your children, doing something fun and exciting. We have to find time to inject joy. As one podcaster that I listened to said, it's important to inject joy into our everyday life, because this is what's going to get us through all of the work or the #adulting that we have to do. The next is our spiritual self-care, taking time to pray. If you pray, taking time to meditate, to read. Again, this is also added to that self-reflection time. Just slow down, life. Life can get very busy, but taking that time to slow down and connect with that thing that's bigger than yourself. Last but not least, our professional self-care. Waking up every day and doing the things that we know that we enjoy, right? The way how we contribute to this bigger society, whether you're a homemaker, whether you're a consultant, whether you work with your hands, whether you build things, whether you are a teacher, doing those things that bring you joy. And so all these small steps can aid in our mental health and mental well-being. One of the other biggest things is to be a community. One of my favorite African proverbs says, let me pull over. Oops, sorry, 1 second. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We can't really make it in this life without our community. It's important to have our own self-care and coping skills and outlets, but we also need each other. And so being a community. As a provider, there's many individuals that I work with where we talk through their struggles, we talk to what they're going through, but when they go home, they don't have anyone. And so they just want a friend to go have dinner with or go walk in the park with. Unfortunately, I can't be that person for my clients. I can't say, hey, let's go to the restaurant, or hey, let's have a sleepover. I have to have my boundaries, right? And so that's where family and friends step in to say, hey, like, I can reach you on this level. We can reach each other on this level to get through all these changes that life brings. So this last slide, I did outline a couple of providers. If you're realizing, you know what, hey, I do need to talk to someone. I do need a professional to share or just kind of process through all these changes in my life with. There is the Rappahannock Area Community Service Board. There is an office in each county, and there is an office out in King George. You can reach out to them to start services. You can contact your insurance provider, and they can get you connected with a therapist that takes your insurance. You can go on Google and type in Psychology Today, and .com, and you can go in and they have sections where you can put in your insurance, put in the needs that you're facing, and it'll pop up with a slew of providers that you can reach out to with a picture. Sometimes they have a video, and they also have like a mini paragraphs throughout their page about how they work and support others. Also ask a friend. You never know what friend or family member that might be already seeing a therapist that has availability, and they can connect you with their therapist. Also, if you're like, I'm not sure if I'm letting my stressors get to me, that Mental Health of America has a self-assessment screener that you can complete, and it'll let you know that, based on your symptoms, you are having some severe anxiety or severe depression. So that is one tool. And then also one thing that I do with my clients is a self-care assessment. And so it breaks down these 5 different areas of assessment, and you do a self-rating on how you're doing. And if you realize, in my physical health care, I'm checking off a lot of poor, maybe take some time to refocus on that physical self-care. If I'm checking out a lot on my spiritual self-care, take some time to rebuild in that spiritual area. So that is my presentation on mental health and wellness. Again, I'm Antasia. If you have any questions, you can ask. If you aren't able to ask during this session today, you can send me an email at info@youthlifeservices.com, and we can talk and I can answer any question that you have. And when I do have availability, if there's any kiddos or families that need support or services, you're welcome to reach out. Okay, thank you. Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I'll go ahead and turn it over to the moderator.
Thank you, Antasia. We appreciate all of that information. It was wonderful to have that information, and especially during pandemic and even the days beyond. I'm sure a lot of anxiety and stress from all of that has affected a lot of people. So to have that information is a great help. Thank you so very much. The next person we shall have is Dr. April Morgan. She's from Germanna. She is the chairperson of the nursing department there, and she will provide us with information on different nursing careers and how to get there through the education and what Germanna has to offer as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I am so honored to be here. Just want to double check. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
You're good.
Yes,
Okay.
Dr. Morgan.
Wonderful. Thank you. Again, I am April Morgan, and I am a registered nurse with my doctorate in nursing education. I'm the co-department chair for the RN program here at Germanna Community College. I'm also an associate professor of nursing and teach in the first semester, our baby nurses. I'm here today to talk to you about health and education. I wanted to start with just giving honor to a historic Black woman in healthcare. Mary Eliza Mahoney was the first trained Black nurse in the United States. She was trained at New England Hospital for Women and Children, which was founded in 1862 as an all-women's hospital. She was one of the 9 people that were admitted, and after 16 demanding months, only 3 of them are believed to have graduated, and Mary Mahoney was one of them. I'd like to play this 1-minute video. It is from the CDC, and it is about the state of African American health. For those of you that may have been on the phone and unable to see the images, I just wanted to give a brief description. It basically was showing that although we've done a lot of work and we've come very far, there are still healthcare disparities amongst the Black communities, mainly in heart conditions, in diabetes, in stress and mental health. One way to combat these healthcare disparities within our Black communities is to encourage people of color to pursue healthcare careers. African Americans in particular are underrepresented in all the professions responsible for the provision of intimate, physical, mental, and social care. There are many different healthcare professions outside of becoming a doctor or a nurse to consider. I've listed a few here on the slide. I, of course, am partial to the field of nursing, but even I have to be reminded to spread the word about all healthcare fields. To name a few, we have personal health training or personal training. We have physical education. We have physical therapy, occupational therapy, respiratory therapy, case management, social workers, certified nursing assistants or CNAs. In Virginia, we have the Virginia Community Colleges. There's 23 community colleges that serve our community. One of the best ways to begin your journey in healthcare education as a student or as an educator is at a community college. A community college is always less than 1 hour away no matter where you live in the state of Virginia. I'm here representing Germanna Community College, which serves the King George area, Orange, Culpeper, City of Fredericksburg, and Stafford, to name a few. I love this presentation that's on the VCCS website, or the website for the Virginia Community Colleges, because you can find this at www.vccs.edu. The community college benefits our community. Just to point out that the cost savings of starting your education at a community college and then transferring to a four-year university. 1 year tuition at a community college is about $5,000, whereas a four-year institution is around $14,000 or more. We also have guaranteed admissions agreements with over 30 public and private four-year colleges in Virginia. So you can start with us and get your undergraduate courses underway at a cheaper cost, and then transfer with a guaranteed admissions to one of our prestigious four-year universities in Virginia. Here at Germanna, we have what we call a health science pathway. So you can start with 5 courses as you're deciding which of the health science pathways you'd like to take. But those 5 courses will be a pathway to any of the health science careers. Many of our programs also require additional admissions criteria. So nursing, our licensed practical nurse program, our licensed practical nurse to RN track. So all of our licensed practical nurses that want to further their education can come and do our bridge program. Our physical therapist assistant program and our dental assisting program all require additional admissions process once you apply to Germanna Community College. I'd also like to take a moment to highlight our general studies pre-BSN degree or pre-Bachelor's of Science degree in nursing. This is a program where you can come to Germanna, get all of your general education courses out of the way at a cheaper cost, and then transfer to a four-year institution to finish your nursing bachelor's degree. So you come out of Germanna with a general studies degree with a focus in nursing, and then you can transfer and finish your nursing program at another institution. You also have the option of using the general studies pre-BSN program to gain financial aid, to get all of your prereqs out of the way, to then join our program here at Germanna Community College and get your associate's degree in nursing, sit for your RN licensure, and then move on to another institution to get your bachelor's degree. Here are the health technology programs that we have at Germanna Community College. Emergency services, so becoming an EMT, physical therapist assistant, dental assisting, health and physical education, personal training, and pharmacy tech. Avenues at starting your education at Germanna, we have what's called the College Everywhere program, where you can get your degree in 1 year. So they're fully online courses. They are instructor-led classes that move very quickly and allow you the flexibility to complete the course at your own progress, at your own pace. We also have what's called the Virginia G3 initiative, where Virginia residents who qualify can receive funding for their education. When you're receiving your Germanna G3 funding, you're on a stackable pathway, which means that most programs start with skills training that leads to a certificate that has immediate value in the job market. We also have ways that you can start college early. We have our dual enrollment program, where students in high school can begin their college education. We have the program, a dual enrollment program where students can, while they're in their high school, they can take college courses. We also have the Gladys P. Todd Academy and the Germanna Scholars Program. These programs are co-enrollment with their high school and Germanna, and they start in their junior year. And by the time they graduate from high school, they are also graduating from Germanna with their General Studies Associate degree. These are a list of some of the guaranteed admissions agreements that we have with Virginia's colleges and colleges outside of Virginia. Again, we have 30 agreements of guaranteed admission. So you may be asking, how do I get started? It's very easy. Come to our website, come to our office hours, and meet with one of our recruiters or with our academic advisor. And we'll walk you through the process of applying to Germanna and signing up for classes. Here are some resources for you. www.germanna.edu. You can also reach the nursing program and the health technologies programs at nursing@germanna.edu. And lastly, you can always contact me and I will point you in the right direction and give you any feedback or advice I can about your future career in nursing. Also, I wouldn't be a nurse if I didn't leave you with some healthcare information to start you off on your journey. You are a part of Black history, whether you're supporting Black people in the movement of furthering our healthcare providers in gaining their degrees. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you're getting your annual physical exams, get your recommended screenings, know your health status, your blood pressure, your blood glucose level or blood sugar level, and your cholesterol levels, and spread the word about your healthcare, about healthcare careers, and about how to get started. Again, my name is April Morgan, and my email address is amorgan@germanna.edu, and I'll be happy to help point you in the right direction at any point. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. That was a well received source of information, and I would love to have a lot of young people, as well as older adults that want to get into another career, to have listened to what you had to say today and share with us. There was one area that I saw, I did not know what that was. The Medicare, the medication aid. I'm not sure what that is.
Yes, so certified nursing assistants or CNAs can further their education and become a registered medication aid, which allows them to give medications in long-term care facilities, and doctors' offices, and in some nursing homes. And personal health aides can then give medications to their clients as well with that certificate.
Okay, thank you so very much. That was
You're welcome.
great. And hopefully a lot of folks will take advantage of the community college classes. So at this point, we will go on and we will have Mr. Hilton McDaniel to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Lucas. And Dr. Lucas will lead in after he does the introduction. Thank you.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Oh, good. It's my pleasure today to introduce Dr. Joanne Harris Lucas. Dr. Lucas is the fourth of 6 children born to the late Reverend Dr. Curtis West Harris and the late Dr. Ruth Jones Harris. She grew up in Hopewell, Virginia, and attended its public schools. As a 10-year-old fifth grader, Dr. Lucas and two other Black children racially integrated Patrick Copeland Elementary School. Upon graduation from Hopewell High School in 1971, she enrolled in Mary Washington College, which is now the University of Mary Washington, in Fredericksburg, Virginia. In 1975, Dr. Lucas earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in American History Education. That same year, she began her career in public education as an eighth grade civics teacher at James E. Mahoney Junior High School in Hopewell. In 1981, Dr. Lucas accepted a job with Virginia Beach City Public Schools in Virginia Beach, Virginia, to teach high school social studies. As a lifelong learner, she continued her education. She earned her Master of Science degree in education from Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, and a Doctor of Philosophy degree in educational leadership and policy studies from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University in Blacksburg, Virginia, which is now Virginia Tech. While teaching at Salem High School, she was Social Studies Department Chair, Black Culture Club sponsor, forensic team coach, and chosen by the school superintendent to serve on the Virginia Beach City Public School Teacher Forum Leadership Council. Dr. Lucas's colleagues selected her as the 1994 Salem High School Teacher of the Year. She was one of the 5 finalists for the 1994 Virginia Beach City Public Schools Citywide Teacher of the Year. The Francis Land chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution designated her as the Virginia Beach Outstanding American History Teacher in 1996. The American Legion, Post 110, also named her the 2002 History Civics Outstanding Educator of the Year. Dr. Lucas honed her skills and expanded her knowledge for 28 years to become a master teacher. In 2003, she opted to leave the classroom to take a Virginia Beach City Public Schools Central Office Administration position. As a specialist in the Office of Organizational Development, she developed and implemented the Virginia Beach City Public Schools About Face Career Switcher program and managed the Professional Development Program for Virginia Beach City Public School teachers. She coordinated the Virginia Beach City Public School Teacher Orientation and Continuous Learning Institute also for new teachers and facilitated professional learning related to instructional strategies, classroom management, diversity, and professional learning communities. In 2011, Dr. Lucas retired from the Virginia Beach City Public Schools after dedicating 36 years to public education, but continues to impact teaching and learning as a local Black history researcher and an educational consultant. Dr. Lucas has resided in Virginia Beach, Virginia, the last 41 years, and is a member of Piney Grove Baptist Church. She is the wife of the late Calvin C. Lucas and has a daughter, Crystal, and 2 granddaughters, Alana and Saji. She surmises that being blessed with the love of family is a vital piece of God's master plan for life. Dr. Lucas's immediate family of 60 members, lovingly called the Harris Connection, champions a lifestyle based on the African phrase, I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am. So with no further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Joanne Harris Lucas.
Thank you, Hilton. I appreciate that. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous. Haven't done a lot of speaking lately, but I was thrilled when my cousin Vivian called me and said, don't you want to speak? Don't you want to do this? And she introduced me to Marsha, and she introduced me to Cheryl. And yes, I was very, very glad to meet them. But I didn't know that it was going to lead to something like this, but it's perfect. It is National Black History Month. And it is a time that has been set aside for us to really talk about the importance of us. And when I say us people of color, and the presence that we have in the United States of America. My father was one of those people who had such a presence. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, and I laugh, and I eat well, and I grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes, and nobody'll dare say eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. According to Langston Hughes, the words are the paper and strings to package experiences. I selected the words from his poem, I Too, to introduce the Reverend Dr. Curtis West Harris, a man who understood the necessity of freedom, one who experienced the absence of racial inclusion, an individual who recognized the rightful place of Black Americans in our nation's history. If we look into his packaged experiences, we would find that Curtis was a semi-professional baseball player. He was a scoutmaster. He was a PTA president, a Prince Hall Mason, a labor union shop steward, a pastor, a civil rights activist, and an elected official. And more than anything else, he was a husband and he was my daddy. He was a father. And I have no reservation in saying Curtis Harris was definitely a man about town. Curtis was the last of 6 children born to the late Thelma and Sandy Harris on July 1st, 1924 in Dendron, Virginia. His father left the household before he was born. His mother moved the entire family to Hopewell in 1928 when Curtis was 4 years old, with hopes of improving their quality of life. She worked hard. She was a domestic. She had very little education, and for the most part, they lived in poverty. Now, Daddy used to talk about growing up poor, and he used to tell us stories about how he didn't have shoes to wear, so he would cut off, he had sisters and they had high heel shoes, so he would just cut the heels off and wear those. And sometimes he missed school. He lost a lot of days not being able to get to school, not having the right clothes, not having food to eat, that kind of thing. And so one of the things that he used to joke about was before he did go out to school, his mama would cook some fatback and then grease his mouth up with the fatback. And I said, well, Daddy, why did she grease your mouth up? Well, he said when he got to school, if his mouth was greasy, then all of the people at school would think he had a whole lot to eat. So being poor was his reality. But Curtis was taught the value of sharing with those who were less fortunate. The sharing factor and the selflessness exemplified by his mother were pivotal in his entry into the ministry and to his role that he selected to play in the protection of human rights. After graduating from Carter G. Woodson High School in Hopewell, Curtis matriculated at Virginia Union University in Richmond. He left college to marry Ruth Jones on February 20th, 1946. He took a job as a janitor at Allied Chemical and Dye Company, just as many other Black men of color in Hopewell. Ruth and Curtis were married for 65 years and parented 6 children: Curtis Jr., Kenneth, Michael, myself, Karen, and Michelle. The Harris connection, as the family proudly calls itself, has grown to include 2 daughter-in-laws, 1 son-in-law, 19 grandchildren, 28 great-grandchildren, and 6 great-great-grandchildren. You see, Curtis needed a team. In order to do what he had to do, he needed somebody behind him. And the family was behind everything that he was involved in. Daddy was a strict disciplinarian, but he had a great heart. He had a terrific sense of humor, and he was a great storyteller. He told stories that never had any endings, and he was always accompanying his stories with some sing-songy thing. Daddy would sing in a low voice, get out my cherry tree, you nasty, stinking bum. And then he would go on and tell this story about a little boy who was trying to steal from a man's cherry tree orchard. And then he would go into another little song that all of the people in my family, they know way down yonder, not very far off. The blue jay died with a whooping cough. He hooped so loud with the whooping cough, he hooped his head and tail right off. Same song, second verse. And we would join in and we would chant right along with him. We had no idea what those words meant. He never explained just exactly where he got that from, but I researched it. And in my research, I found that it was a Boy Scout round that they would do when they were around the campfire. It was a song that they would sing or chant that they would do. And Daddy was a scoutmaster for a lot of years. And that's where he got that from, but he never, ever explained that to us. And even the little ones in our family today know that particular round. And if they hear somebody start it, they will chant right in. I found a proverb, and it was already mentioned in my introduction. I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am. And it's applicable to the foundation of my family, the Harris connection. And at the center of the Harris connection was my mother, Ruth Jones Harris. I have to take a minute to give her a shout out because my mom was special. She was smart. She was beautiful. She was strong. She was everything. She was everything she needed to be able to be his wife and to be our mother. And because of who she was, it made it possible for Daddy to be who he was. And not only was she all those things, I just have to say my mama made the very best homemade rolls in all of Virginia. She was a good woman. Now, in 1959, the late Dr. George W. King and Union Baptist Church in Hopewell ordained Reverend Harris into the ministry. He began his spiritual call at First Baptist Church, Bermuda 100 in Chesterfield, where he pastored for 10 years. In 1961, Reverend Harris was called to lead the congregations at Union Baptist Church in Hopewell and Gillfield Baptist Church in Ivor, Virginia. He was at Gillfield for 33 years, and he preached his farewell sermon at Union on Sunday, December 16th, 2007, after 46 years as pastor. Reverend Harris also received an honorary Doctor of Divinity degree in 1972 and an honorary Doctor of Law degree in 1983 from Virginia University of Lynchburg. Now, being a preacher's kid has its perks, but it wasn't always easy. And I was going to college, and I decided that I needed to speak to Dr. Harris, not as my daddy, but as my pastor. So I made an appointment with him, and I went up to his church study, and I had a seat. And as soon as I started talking to him about my issue, he fainted. And it scared me to death. I was shocked. And of course, we had to call the ambulance, and the emergency crew people did come. And in the midst of all of that, I was thinking, Daddy got some kind of weird counseling techniques that you just fall out in the middle of the conversation. Wasn't quite sure what that was all about, but he was ill with something else. And actually he needed to see a doctor, that kind of thing. But my dad was always there for us. And him being a minister, just as I said before, we had to be a part of that too. So at one point, Daddy was pastoring 3 churches at the same time. So that meant we went to church all day on Sunday, because we went to church in Hopewell, then we went to church in Chesterfield, then we went to church in Ivor. So he did a lot of preaching in his early days in the ministry. Him choosing the ministry as his vocation coincided with his interests in the civil rights movement. He was elected president of the Hopewell chapter of the NAACP in 1950. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was invited to speak at the 21st annual NAACP convention at Mount Olivet Baptist Church in Petersburg on October 5th, 1956. His topic was desegregation in the future. Dr. Harris was in the audience. He thought Dr. King was ordered from God to be the speaker that evening and decided to utilize nonviolence and passive resistance to combat racial and social injustice in Virginia. In 1960, Dr. Harris was going to help to organize the Hopewell Improvement Association, an affiliate of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference of the SCLC. He staged a sit-in at the segregated George's drugstore in Hopewell and was arrested for trespassing. During his career as an activist, Curtis Harris was arrested 13 times for acts of civil disobedience. After becoming a member of the National Board of SCLC in 1961, Dr. Harris was cited for contempt by the Boatwright Committee of the Virginia General Assembly for not revealing the names of other SCLC members and not responding to the questions asked by the committee. To show his support, Dr. King came to Hopewell on March 29, 1962, and accompanied Dr. Harris to his contempt trial, along with 100 other clergymen and laymen. They all parade down to the courthouse in Hopewell. And my brothers and I, we didn't get to see that. Mama made us go to school, and she has apologized to us for not allowing us to stay out to be able to meet Dr. King. Dr. King even went into a restaurant that we owned and had something to drink. And so she said she was very, very sorry that she didn't allow us to experience that. But that particular day in the courthouse, as soon as all of these people who had marched down to court had assembled in the courthouse, one of Daddy's friends, he was also president of the state unit of the SCLC for the state of Virginia. He is going to stand up, and this was not anything that was rehearsed or nobody expected it, but his name was Dr. Milton Reed. And Dr. Reed stands up and he announces, "Let us pray." And everybody put their head down, even the judge. And Daddy said that Dr. Reed prayed a long, long prayer. And you know how them Southern Baptist Black ministers know how to pray those long prayers. Well, Dr. Reed prayed a long prayer. And the case was eventually dismissed, and in part, it was because of that long, long prayer from Dr. Milton Reed. In 1963, it was a red letter year for the Harris Connection. Dr. Harris was elected president of the Virginia State Unit of SCLC, a position that he would serve until 1998. He led a march against discrimination in Danville and was arrested for inciting a riot. On August 28, 1963, Dr. King was invited to speak at Peanut Park in Suffolk, and Daddy was asked to be master of ceremonies. And I was there. I was there with Mama and Daddy. I was 10 years old, and 5,000 people came, and I got to set up on the platform with all the dignitaries. And guess who was sitting right in front of me? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I was so excited to be in the presence of such a great man. And somebody wanted to send a note to Dr. King. So they asked me to pass Dr. King the note. And I said, oh yeah, this is gonna be my chance to be able to say something to Dr. King. So I took the note and I tapped Dr. King on the shoulder, and Dr. King turned around and smiled at me, and I couldn't think of anything to say. And I'm a talker. I can always talk, but I couldn't think of a word to say to this man. So I just handed him the note, and he smiled again, and I smiled at him, and he turned back around, and that was my very first meeting of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. My two oldest brothers, and this is still 1963 now, my two oldest brothers, Curtis and Kenneth, they desegregated Hopewell City Public Schools in that year. They became the first Black students to attend Hopewell High School as summer school students. That fall, Curtis was a senior, Kenneth was a junior and my brother Michael was an 8th grader. They all attended Hopewell High School. I was transferred to Patrick Copeland Elementary School, and as it said in my introduction, I was the only Black 5th grader at Patrick Copeland Elementary School. So like I said, anything that Daddy was involved in, the whole family was in it. So when schools got integrated, all of us were in. All 4 of us were very much involved in the integration of schools. Still in that same year, August 28th, 1963, Daddy and my brothers, Curtis and Kenneth, marched on Washington and witnessed Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. And this was all in support of the passing of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. In 1964, Daddy announced his candidacy for a seat on the Hopewell City Council, and he became director of the Virginia Council on Human Relations. In 1965, Dr. Harris marched 54 miles from Selma to Montgomery in support of the Voting Rights Act. He acted as a human shield for Dr. King during the march. He was confronted by the Ku Klux Klan on the steps of the Hopewell City Hall, and he had a bomb, or a bottle bomb, that was thrown through the window of our home, and a cross burned in our yard, a cross that Daddy made Michael and I stand in front of and take a picture, because he wanted to let people know just what was happening as far as racial discrimination was concerned in the city of Hopewell. Daddy was in the mix in the 60s. And again, it meant that the family was absolutely in the mix. And when the Ku Klux Klan confronted him on the steps of City Hall, I knew that that was an important day. I was in 7th grade and I had just had my tonsils removed and I was recouping. So my mom said, you know, you can't be in the march. You're not well yet. And the march started quite a distance from where we lived, but I knew where the march was going. So I sneaked out of the house when she wasn't paying attention. And I went on downtown to where the march was supposed to end because I wanted to be able to be a part of that. I had no idea. I had never seen the Ku Klux Klan, just in pictures. But all of a sudden, this whole parade of Ku Klux Klansmen came marching down the street. And I will never, ever forget that day because the Klan were responding to my dad. My dad was leading a chant and he was saying, freedom, freedom. And we would chant behind him, freedom. And the Klan was saying, never, never, you are never gonna be free. And that has stuck in my mind. All of my life has been a lot of years since that happened when I was a 7th grader, but that was a important time in my life, important time in my family's life as well. In 1968, Dr. Harris promoted a self-help program with the support of the SCLC, and it was in the Y area of Waverly, Virginia. It was an impoverished Black area, and these Black people who lived there, they lived with no water, no gas, no indoor toilets, makeshift electrical lines, and most of the residents were illiterate. And in that same year, he was selected to serve on the Virginia Advisory Committee to the United States Commission on Civil Rights, which addressed the federal role in the desegregation of public schools. He ran unsuccessfully for a seat on the Hopewell City Council, and in 1983, he forced Hopewell to replace its long-standing at-large system for electing city council members with a ward system. And after 7 attempts, he was finally elected to the Hopewell City Council due to the ward system in 1986. He was elected vice mayor of Hopewell in 1994, and Dr. Harris was sworn in as the first Black mayor of Hopewell, Virginia on July 7th, 1998. In 1992, Daddy suffered a massive stroke, and he had to learn to read and write again. It hampered his pace, but it didn't slow his roll. As an elected official, Dr. Harris continued to work as a minister and as a civil rights activist. He became executive director of the Bethany Baptist Association and allied bodies. He filed complaint against the command center at Fort Lee and identified its discrimination as an example of what goes on United States Army installations across the nation. He commissioned the sculptor Paul Di Pasquale to work on or to work with the Martin Luther King Foundation of Hopewell to design and produce a bronze monument in tribute to Dr. King's historical civil rights visit to Hopewell's courthouse back in 1962. And in April of 2004, there was a ceremony to unveil the completed statue in the Ashford Civic Plaza in front of the courthouse, and Martin Luther King III attended the ceremony. Governor Timothy Kane was keynote speaker at Daddy's retirement dinner in 2007. And that was after 46 years in the ministry at Union Baptist Church. And that was a big deal to me. That was impressive to me. I mean, I've known this man all my life, but when you have the governor of your state that's standing up and is the keynote speaker at this Black Baptist minister's retirement, I said, Daddy must be special if the governor is willing to come here and do that. He received the Rosa Parks Award from the National SCLC for his noteworthy contributions to the struggle for human dignity. As an elected official, he championed public education. He was surprised at his 80th birthday celebration when the superintendent of Hopewell City Public Schools announced that the Carter G. Woodson Middle School Library was to be dedicated to and named in his honor. On November 29th, 2010, Daddy was attending a funeral in Newport News, and he suffered a second massive stroke. Mama died the next year on May 22nd. He retired from the Hopewell City Council on May 1st, 2012, after 26 years of service. And that was not an easy decision for him to make. And me, along with my brothers and sisters, kept encouraging him after this second stroke that he needed to retire. But he kept thinking, kept feeling, kept praying that he was going to be on the comeback. The street on which he lived for 60 years was renamed Reverend C.W. Harris Street, and the street running perpendicular to that was renamed in honor of my mother, Ruth Harris Way. Curtis West Harris was granted his wings on December 10th, 2017, at the age of 93. The war-torn veteran of Christian stewardship and social justice can be described as one who possessed an open heart, constantly touched by the needs of all humanity. 2020 was another red letter year for the Harris Connection. In September of that year, an image of Doctors Curtis and Ruth Harris were included in a mural highlighting the history of Hopewell, displayed in the city's Wells Fargo Bank on 15th Avenue. Then on September 14th, the United States House of Representatives voted unanimously to put Dr. Harris's name on the Hopewell Post Office. On December 3rd, the United States Senate approved the legislation that came from, was started by Representative A. Donald McEachin, who was representative of the 4th Congressional District. And then on December 21st, the United States President of the US President signed the bill, and the Hopewell Post Office at 111 West Portree Street was to be named the Reverend Curtis West Harris Post Office Building, and it became public law. On July 15th, 2021, all of my family came to Hopewell. There was a big to-do, and it was all about a commemorative plaque that was unveiled, and it was unveiled to be placed inside or outside of the post office in Hopewell. We celebrated. We celebrated the fact that the city of Hopewell was paying such tribute to Daddy. And I celebrate today in paying tribute to Daddy. And I celebrate with you, and I'm thankful. I am thankful to the King George NAACP, who allowed me this time today to give accolades to my daddy and to his work in civil rights. Curtis Harris was not a perfect man, but he was a man to be admired. As a man about town, Daddy didn't tell us how to live. He lived and let us watch him do it. I would like to conclude with a video that I styled for my daddy, about my daddy, and I call it We Shall Overcome, Curtis W. Harris, the Civil Rights Movement.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. And we'll walk hand in hand. 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 We'll walk hand in hand someday. Deep in my heart, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. Oh, someday we shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome one day. We shall overcome someday.
Dr. Lucas, that was fantastic. I feel like every time I talk with you, I learn more and more and more. The first meeting that we had, Marcia and I, and you and Vivine, we talked for hours, and I learned a lot that day. But I thank you so much for presenting and giving your background and your history of your dad. It was phenomenal. I feel like I personally know him just from the stories you have told. And like I said, every time we talk, I find out something different. It's never the same, but it's been enlightened. And I just feel grateful that I was able to share that with you. And we feel like, you know, he did some much needed things back in Suffolk and throughout the state of Virginia and other states in the United States. And we have benefited from the work that he did. And so we thank you for sharing him. We thank you for sharing with us some of what he did do. And Vivine, we did see your websites. Thank you for giving us some background information as well throughout this. We just thank you.
It was my pleasure, and I would like for Dr. Lucas to just recognize her siblings that are on the call.
Okay.
Thank you, Vivine, because I wanted to do that because my family is here, and I told you we're a team. We are the Harris Connection, and my oldest brother is here, Curtis Jr., the one that integrated public schools along with his wife, Nita. My brother Michael is here, and my sister and her son, my sister Michelle and her son Joshua, they're here. My nephew is here as well, and he is my father's namesake. He is Curtis West Harris III, and he has a Curtis West Harris IV. We're gonna just keep this thing going long as we can. And you tell little Curtis that we need him to have one more baby so we can be, having our Curtis West Harris V. And Dee's mother is here, Charlene. And how are you, Charlene? I haven't seen you in years. How are you? And then I see somebody that I knew when she was a little girl, and I thought I was grown because I was going to college. Hey, Marcy.
Hey, Joanne.
You thought I wouldn't recognize you. I looked at, I said, look at this Marcy. Marcy
So great. I mean, the impact that you had on our lives when you were here, just to hear you sing and do the poetry and to share your family's just, and it's just amazing that we were able to be blessed with you here in the city through Harambe and all that you did to influence us through those formative years as teenagers. When I heard that you were going to be on, I said, I was hoping I'd be able to make a connection in some form. Wonderful, Joanne.
Thank you, Marcy.
Great to see. And Belle's on too.
Oh, I see, she is waving. Hey, Mel. Look, these were my comrades when I was at Mary Washington College, and we were in Harambe 360 degrees because we thought we were the most talented.
Yes.
We thought we didn't even really know what a thespian was, but we were that. We thought we were very much that, and we did a lot of entertaining, and it's kind of making me kind of teary-eyed to see you guys because it has been years. Look, it's 50 years ago almost. Yes. I don't know how old y'all are.
You're right. Yes.
Yep.
I'm still like 47. I'm kind of old. I'm trying to hold it at about 47.
And Joanne, this is my 40th year in education here in the city.
Oh my goodness.
40 years.
Wait a minute. If you've been there 40 years and I was in there 36 years before I left, My.
Yeah. Bless you. Love you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be a Q&A? Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yes, feel free to ask questions at this point in time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nadine Lucas. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I just recently moved to Hopewell, so this has been a very enlightening conversation that you've had. And I am familiar with some of the places that you mentioned, especially the Wells Fargo Bank. I haven't been inside of it, but I will certainly go inside now. And my daughter was also from Hopewell, so she was listening. So we were very encouraged by what you said, and we'll certainly go out and try to find these different places, especially the street that's named for your father and your mother. But you did it was great, very
Yeah.
eye-opening.
You know, Hopewell constructed this huge H right there at the bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, my family decided that that stood for Harris.
Oh, did they? Okay. I'll
Yeah.
tell my daughter that because she hates
Yeah,
that H.
Yeah, that, you know, we decided that Hopewell wasn't enough. It just needed to be Harris.
Okay.
And my dad had a presence in Hopewell, so it makes us
Yeah.
very, very proud whenever anybody wants to highlight him. And let me say this: my dad was a very self-absorbed man, and what didn't mean he wasn't a good man, but my dad loved somebody honoring him. He loved that. So anything that anybody would do to show or to exemplify his work, he was always up and ready to receive that. So yeah, please go into Wells Fargo
I will.
and look at the things that he brought to a Hopewell.
Thank you.
I see Deborah, is this Vinny or Vaney?
It's Vini. And I want to know if you still have the photo that your dad took of you and your family in front of the burning cross, or where was it published?
Okay, photos of, I didn't quite understand.
You mentioned your dad taking a photo of you, and I think it was your brother, in front of a burning cross that was burned in your yard.
Oh, yes, I do have that photo. Yes, I do. You want me, if I had known, I can share my screen even, and it's going to take me a minute to be able to do that. But yes, I do have that photo. Is that okay if I do that? I don't want to take up too much time.
It's fine. Thank you.
Does somebody else
thank
have
all of
enough?
you.
Okay, go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, did anybody else have a question for me as I was looking for this picture? Or if you, Cheryl, if you wanted to go ahead and say something.
I do appreciate everyone for registering and signing in and being with us today. With COVID, it's been very difficult to plan activities, but Germanna has been phenomenal with us. I can't thank them enough, and I don't want to forget someone, but Veronica, Scott, Dr. Morgan, we appreciate you all so very much for all that you have done to make this program go smoothly and to provide the Zoom capability, the advertisements and the Freelance Star, and on your website. It's been great. Like I said, we can't thank you enough, and our sponsors, we have appreciated everyone And we hope this has been a great learning experience. I know I have learned a lot today.
May I say something?
Yes, definitely.
As I just want to say congratulations to the King George branch of the NAACP as former area branch, as former area chair, and also as president of the Fredericksburg branch NAACP. This was very inspirational, and Reverend Harris is a great man. And thank you so much, Dr. Lewis, for such a wonderful presentation. And I would like to share your information with the Fredericksburg branch of the NAACP. So I will be in contact with you.
Okay. I found the picture, and can you see it?
Mhm. Look.
And that's us. We were on our way to school, and Daddy made us stop, take a picture. And that cardboard that's in the window is where the window was broken. And we were just all watching television, and all of a sudden that came through the window. It was creosote, and it was supposed to explode, but it didn't. And so we were very fortunate. And at the time, my sister was crawling on the floor, so she could have been hurt. It was, Dad took that very seriously. Yeah, he was calling the FBI and everybody to look into that particular situation.
Thank you for sharing.
Is there
Are
another?
there other questions?
Joanne, I know that you have a beautiful voice. You used to sing for us, you know, and you almost, you know, did a bit of it initially. Do you still sing and share that gift in terms of?
Not as I once did. I too had a stroke in 2015, and it did impact. And actually, as I was writing this, I thought about the freedom songs we used to sing. That was my big role that I played in the demonstrations and that kind of thing. And I did a lot of singing, and I had a gospel group, did a lot of singing.
Right.
And even brought the gospel group to Mary Washington to sing.
Right.
But I don't sing much in the public since I had the stroke, and it did impact my voice. And I think it's more of a mental thing for me. So no, Marcy, I am not getting ready to sing. So I'm just gonna,
Okay,
no,
but
not-
when I ever think of you, and that's the image I have. We're on some stage and you're involved in a beautiful song, and we're mesmerized in terms of all of your gifts. So
I wish I was not too afraid to do that. So, and I probably would bust right out, because but I have a sister who's not on the call. She has taken my place.
oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
So
We tried that, Marcy.
I'm sorry.
We tried to get her to sing. We begged her a little bit, but we
Okay.
understood. We understood the reasons.
Right. Yeah. Well, what do you think about the critical race theory and all of that being linked to public schools and all the trauma we're under in terms of?
Joanne, can you show that picture?
Which picture?
The one that you sent on the critical race.
Oh,
theory.
yes, I can. That's some garbage. Critical race theory is just another cop-out. It's just another reason for people not to teach what they need to teach in the public schools. I cannot believe that I was a United States history teacher for 28 years. I cannot imagine that I wouldn't be able to talk about the institution of slavery, and I can't teach the institution of slavery and not talk about racism. I never taught that the Civil War was caused by anything except slavery. and slavery is about Black people. And if me saying that white people enslaved Black people makes you feel bad, I don't know what that meant for Black children when I talked about slavery, but nobody ever talked about critical race theory all those years ago. But now we got this new thing. So no, I just think that's a bunch of garbage, and this too will pass. We just got to let people settle down, but because we're always looking for something that's not the real thing to be able to support, so we can divert our
Distractors.
focus on what's real. And what's real is the country is behind the times as far as human rights are concerned.
I agree. Thank you.
Oh, I'm supposed to show you a picture. That's right. This is a picture that I found about critical race theory. Maybe you have seen it online as well. And the young man that's the artist, he was not like a famous artist or anything like that. He's from Chicago, he's a young guy. And it's just amazing what can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
And this is what critical race theory is doing, is whitewashing our history right on away. I can remember when I took history in high school, elementary school, I never saw anybody Black in my history books. And when I was teaching, we got a new history book one year, and I was thumbing through the new history book, and I looked down there and there was a picture of my daddy in the middle of my history book. I said, I know, hallelujah, something special is going on now. My daddy is in the history book. And when school opened and we had to introduce this new book to our students, I told them to turn right to the page with my daddy on it to let them know this is my father. My father was a great man. And you need to know about him, and you need to know about people like him. And critical race theory is trying to dissolve that thought for some reason.
Joanne, I had a similar feeling when I opened one of my books that John Lewis wrote, and there was a picture of him there in his book. And also, every time I would encounter John Lewis, we would always talk about your dad, and he would always talk about what a great man he was. So, I'm sure my feeling wasn't like yours, but I can relate.
That floors me that John Lewis was talking about daddy. I mean, I know, I've heard Michael say that too. My brother Michael worked with John Lewis on different occasions. But you remember when the movie Selma came out? Well, me and my girlfriend, we went to the movies to see Selma. And at the end of the movie, it was footage from the Selma to Montgomery March. And who was in the footage except my daddy marching? I'm screaming in the movie, that's my daddy. I was hoping they wouldn't put me out, but I was just so shocked to see my father in the middle of this great movie. I thought it was a great movie. And so my girlfriend, she stood up right beside me and she was saying, that's Joanne's daddy, that's Joanne's. So we are proud. The family is proud of Curtis. Yes, we are.
And one of my friends scored the music to that movie.
Yeah, Vivian, you know everybody.
Not really.
Any other questions? Thank you again for inviting me. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much for all the insights and inspiration that you have provided to us this afternoon. We truly, truly appreciate it. I will now turn this back over to our president, Mr. Wayne Bushrod.
Well, let us give our guest speaker and all presenters a virtual round of applause. I thought it was fantastic. Thank you to everyone that dialed in to our program this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I thought all the health
We did.
Good. I thought all the health tips were very informative, and Dr. Lucas's presentation was very enlightening and heartfelt. Thank you, Dr. Lucas. At this time, I would like to thank everyone who made this program a huge success through their hard work and involvement in planning and support. Dr. Joanne Harris Lucas, Ms. Antasia Nance, and Mr. Hilton McDaniel, thank you very much. A special thank you to Dr. Janet Gullickson, President of Germanna Community College, for allowing us to use a portion of her staff that helped with planning, obtaining additional resources, advertising via newspaper and various social media platforms, IT support, and the use of their Zoom. Thank you, Germanna and Dr. Gullickson. Staff members of Germanna include Dr. April Morgan, Dr. Tiffany Ray, Dr. Shoshana Gray, Ms. Veronica Curry, Dr. Scott Ackerman, Ms. Kelly Saunders, and Ms. Shavonta Hayes. Also, a special thank you to our sponsors, Ms. Cynthia Adams and Waste Management. Although I do not have a list of donors, I want to thank everyone that made a financial donation to our branch. We appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, our planning team, Ms. Cheryl Stewart, Ms. Marcia Stonehill, Ms. Vivine McDaniel, I hope I got that right, Ms. Soleil Denton, and Ms. Kamora Denton. Again, the program would not have been successful if not for everyone that dialed in and donated. Don't forget, go to our website, kgnaacp.com, and join. Take advantage of the reduced rate of $25 until March 31st. Don't wait. Thank you, Ms. Fields from Fredericksburg, for joining in and participating in our program. It's good seeing you. And does anyone else have any comments, questions? With that being said, I'm going to say good evening and be blessed. Thank you all.